Colin was right?
I said Friday, Carson Wentz today now is better than J.J. McCarthy. He may not be in 6 weeks. Yes, the Vikings defense was great. But I said on Friday's show, oh, he'll win and he'll be great. J.J. McCarthy looked overwhelmed. Carson Wentz has a 130 passer rating yesterday, 70% completion rate in total control. The reason I like Carson Wentz is look at the coaches who like him. Kevin O'Connell liked him. Sean McVay liked him. He keeps bouncing around to smart offensive coaches. Carson Wentz was reckless, got banged up, but I will defend him. I think he's honestly one of the most talented backup quarterbacks. In fact, easily in the National Football League. And yesterday, you can win a bunch of games with Carson Wentz and that staff, those weapons, and Brian Flores.
I mean, Andy Reid wanted him. That was my take, where I said all the great offensive coaches wanted Carson Wentz as their backup, and that matters. You know, in the NFL, that matters. The fact that the Chiefs were going for a three-peat and Andy Reid said, I'm going to have Carson as my backup. That's as big as it gets. And so, yeah, of course, a Carson Wentz is going to be able to have more success than a rookie quarterback. No question about it. I have been trying to get this message across to the Minnesota Vikings fan base for months now, for months and months and months. A seasoned veteran is a seasoned veteran for a reason. And when you combine a seasoned veteran with a great offensive head coach, especially someone who understands a quarterback position, you are going to have high levels of success. We've seen it a million times over. A young quarterback like a J.J. McCarthy has to learn so much, and things are happening at such a high rate that there are guaranteed struggles, just guaranteed struggles. And that even if, from a pure talent standpoint, that a veteran lacks compared to a young up-and-coming quarterback like a J.J. McCarthy, just their experience, their composure, their understanding, their depth of understanding of how to play quarterback at the NFL level, as long as they're actually talented, like a Sam Darn, like a Carson Wentz, not like a true pure, this is just a third string quarterback, right? Like there's obviously limits to what I'm saying here, but when you get to the level of a Carson Sam, etc., you're going to have a lot of success. You're going to have a quarterback that understands how to execute and run the offense. And I always talk about this, they're speaking the same language. Kevin O'Connell doesn't need to translate anything for Carson Wentz. He doesn't need to translate anything to Kirk Cousins or Sam Darnold. He has to translate everything for J.J. McCarthy. They're not going to speak the same language just yet. They're just not, because J.J. McCarthy is learning every single day that passes. And so there's just a lot. So, I said that, Carson, I was like, I can't wait to see Carson Wentz with Kevin O'Connell on this Minnesota Vikings team. I was like, my only fear was that it might be slightly too late for a Carson Wentz, because he is already 32, and he hadn't been able to get some of the playing time that like a Sam Darnold had, and Sam Darnold's obviously way younger. And I was like, I wonder if Carson just got to Kevin O'Connell like just a little bit too late, because Carson Wentz is the type of quarterback that if he found his way to the Minnesota Vikings instead of, say, Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz would still be your quarterback. I really believe that. Again, I don't know if we'll be able to prove that to you right now at this point of his career, since he is older and he has had a fair amount of injuries. But he's the dude can ball. He is arguably, it's a shame the way how his career has unfolded, but I mean, like his career, his QU, his level of talent will be one of the most underrated perceptions about a quarterback ever. I mean, even Eagles fans who had him, I don't think really appreciate how important he was for the fact that they won the Super Bowl. He essentially got the ball to the 80-yard line, and then Nick Foss brought it. I mean, like it's the perfect analogy, because it's football. We see this all the time. A running back break off a massive run for 75 yards, but just fall short. They're now at the 8-yard line, and then, then a little flick, a little toss to a tight end gets a touchdown, and now it's like, hey, touchdown for the tight end. It's like, well, yeah, but running back was the workhorse there, man. And that's what Carson Wentz was able to do for the Eagles. Still should have won the MVP even though he got injured, but it was given to Peyton Manning, I think, which shouldn't have happened. Um, but then he played for a terrible Eagles team, was still able to make do, was still able to get them into the playoffs, then played for an exceptionally terrible Eagles team, just making do, doing what he could. But then again, injuries, scapegoated, played really well in Indianapolis, was like a top 10 quarterback in Indianapolis, but that owner was like, nope, get out of here. Like, they needed someone to blame for why they didn't make the playoffs. And then he went to the Washington football team with Ron Rivera, you know. And then it's like, you get there up in age, you get your injuries, you're not the most likable guy in the locker room, and no one's going to bat for you. But that's where you now enter Kevin O'Connell, and you're just like, all right, like, there can be some juice here. There really can be. Obviously, the defense was awesome. Obviously, the Bengals are an absolute mess, and they made a backup quarterback look like a backup quarterback, which is what a great defense is supposed to do. And I'm not going to try to pretend like Carson Wentz going to take over this Vikings team, and now it's just going to be win-win, win-win, right? I'm not saying that either. But what I am saying is that as long as Carson Wentz still has some juice, and as long as he hasn't really, really taken a turn in terms of his, let's just say, I don't want to use the word prime, but just say how much left's in his career. As long as he's not really on the decline, you can win a ton of games, and the offense will be run a lot more smoother and be a lot more resilient. Oh, that's a key thing. A lot more resilient than with a young J.J. McCarthy who would now be playing. What would it be? His third, when he starts again, it would be his third game of his NFL career. And now even a situation with J.J. where he was able to play, and then he played and then got injured. Now he's taking some time off. Don't underestimate how much that hurts you. Don't underestimate some of the regression. And now, like any of the lessons that you learned, you don't get to immediately apply to that next week, to that third week. You're now like kind of sliding back. Like, it's such a momentum type thing here that like it's even more of a disservice now for JJ. So it's frustrating. It's annoying. But listen, getting Carson Wentz was the smart move for the Minnesota Vikings. They make smart decisions. This is why they went out and got Sam Darnold. Look at what Daniel Jones is doing with Shane Steichen. Another smart move by Kevin Unnell. Like, yeah, we'll take Daniel Jones. Like, so trust what Kevin is doing here, and trust that you can win games with Carson Wentz. And we'll see how the rest of the season unfolds and what JJ looks like, and also just from a health standpoint as well. But this was even though it was such a blowout and it was never even close. A performance like this from Carson and just the Vikings as a whole, I think, can sometimes go under discussed and under noticed. And sometimes a blowout win means absolutely nothing to me. But depending on the situation, it can mean a lot to me. And this is definitely a situation with the Minnesota Vikings where I'm like, okay, this was important. This was key. You didn't have one of those games where it's like, wow, can you believe Jake Browning threw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns and rushed for 90? He was looking like Lamar Jackson back. Like, you didn't have that. You had all these fumbles. And again, you were given some gifts, but also just hard physical defense. Like, everybody understood what they needed to do for this game. They were not going to leave anything up for grabs in a game like this. And that's just the mark of a well-coached team. It's why Kevin Unnell gave his speech where he's like, man, I love this team so much. I just can't wait until our next game. Like, I'm going crazy for this team right now. And it's because wins like this sometimes are, they can be underrated. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Minnesota Vikings dominant win? Ugly win just in terms of the game itself, but dominant, crazy win for against the Bengals. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be a part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.